This message comes from Carrier, committed to providing climate and energy products and services to help enhance lives. More information is at carrier.com. Carrier, for the world we share.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. What is the most notable time you got the ick?
Someone's laugh was a bit too much.
What does that mean? A bit too much in what way?
It was pronounced, it was loud, and it was too long.
What did it sound like? Just for the listener to understand.
It was like a...
I'm sorry. Oh, now you're giving me the ick. It has caught like a yawn.
It wasn't great.
All week long, I'm getting into uncomfortable questions around dating. The questions you might be scared to ask. Today, my question is this. What do you do when your date does something that turns you off? Can you get rid of that feeling? I'm talking about the ick. It's a little term first used by the 90s TV show Ally McBeal, and then it really took off a couple of years ago on the reality show Love Island.
I-C-K.
I-C-K, ick.
Like, ugh.
Ick.
Yes.
Say ick. That's
ick,
it.
like
yeah.
ick.
Yeah.
Like,
Ooh, I've got the ick.
The ick, cringe. I mean, the slang that Love Island has made pop in the United States. What a powerful show. But I digress. What exactly is the ick? Here's how B.A. Parker, co-host of NPR's Code Switch, and It's Been a Minute producer Corey Antonio Rose explain it.
I mean, it's a gut reaction to something personally unsavory.
It's like when you get that little tap on the shoulder from the universe or the ancestors or whatever you believe in, where it's just like, this person is not for you. And it's like, in response to something that is usually just innocuous or everyday, something that if someone you were not interested in was doing, you'd be like, oh, whatever. But because this is somebody that you are potentially exploring, like sharing something with or being in a relationship with, you're like, this can't fly for you. Those other people, they could do that. But you, because you were mine, not with me.
I think of it as this disgust response to something that's mostly innocuous, but might give us pause with someone we're dating. But I wanted to hear about the ick from the people. So I went out on the streets of New York City to hear some of your icks. Have you ever gotten the ick?
I went on a date with someone once that actually said out loud, "Why do people read books?"
What?
I got one. Plumber's crack is a little not...
You know what? With the right person, though, I feel like...
Somebody tripped, and it really was major ick. I was like, oh no, absolutely not. That just gave me the instant ick. Like, why are you
Literally, why are you tripping?
Why are you
tripping?
my
gosh.
There's just things that you just shouldn't be doing in public, and one of them is tripping. Like, that's embarrassing.
So you get it, right? The ick is something that's not really wrong or bad per se, but it's this tiny bit of disgust that you just can't look past or get over. And it's based solely on your own preferences. And since it's so individual, that has me, Parker, and Corey Antonio wondering, is the ick about your date or is it about you? And to answer that question, we're going to play a little game. Okay, so we're going to play a little bit of a game. I've got some anecdotes here about people getting the ick, and you're going to rule on whether it's icky, like someone really was acting icky, or tricky, like the person submitting actually just didn't like the other person like that, and is just playing a trick on themselves.
So tricky is like, oh.
Icky means it's them, tricky means it's you.
Okay.
Got it.
From a friend of the show. I once dated someone who inserted meow into words, i.e., I'm coming over right meow, or that's a meowsing. And she did it all the time. I think I lasted a month and a half. What do y'all think about that?
That's tricky. They're just trying to insert a little bit of fun into the dreariness of life. And this person couldn't take.
I think it's icky.
I'm sorry, Corey. You could deal with a man Like where you text him and you're just like, hey, what's up? How are you doing today? And he's like, I'm meowsing. Like you would like that?
If it's once in like every 3 months or something, or even once a week, I'm like, I'm not going to take that away from
Corey,
somebody.
that's not what's happening.
I think it's consistent.
If they're like a feline biologist or something, like I think we're missing part of the story.
Okay. Corey Antonio says we need more context. Interesting perspective. Okay. All right. We got another one from the Reddit page r/women over 30. This one woman over 30 said, I dated this guy for a few months. He was a nice person, decent boyfriend, tall and nice looking. One day we were making out. We both paused for a second and he looked at me and said, very nice, in a Borat voice. I knew at that moment that it was over for me. LOL.
Shut it down.
Corey Antonio, you shaking your head. You have a hand covering your mouth and shaking.
There are moments to be serious and then there are moments to be unserious, and you got to pick wisely.
So meow is a little festive, but a Borat voice is out of the question.
Time and place.
Time and place. Okay. Time and place. Okay. So here's one from an article about queer women and their icks from Vice.
Ooh.
One person says, I was dating this girl and she kept describing things as artsy. Like, she's so artsy. And you're more of an artsy type. And artsy skirt. It just made me irrationally repulsed. What do y'all think?
I don't know. I feel like when it comes to language and like people's little verbal isms and how they make the English language theirs, I'm usually err on the side of being okay with that kind of stuff, because you got to take your wins where you can find them.
I think when I first heard this, I was like, oh, icky. But you know what? The more I think about it, I think it's tricky, because I think it's one of those things that if you really liked someone, you would think it was the cutest thing in the world that they called everything artsy. Like, you would just think it was so adorable and so sweet, and you would find it to be one of their cute little isms. Whereas I think if someone who annoyed you did that, then you would just find that extremely annoying.
You mean like come Valentine's Day, you get her a thesaurus or something?
That would be nasty work. I would never do that to somebody.
Since you think everything is artsy.
Let's find some new words.
Mama, let's research. Let's expand. So, yes, talking about the ick, thinking about the ick, and laughing about the ick is all fun and games. But there's this psychological thesis that all emotions, from fear to disgust, were evolutionarily advantageous traits. But are they serving us now? Later, one professor of psychology explains why the ick is actually very bad for all of us. We'll be right back.
This message comes from Schwab. At Schwab, how you invest is your choice, not theirs. That's why when it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices. You can invest and trade on your own. Plus, get advice and more comprehensive wealth solutions to help meet your unique needs. With award-winning service, low costs, and transparent advice, you can manage your wealth your way at Schwab. Visit schwab.com to learn more.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Betterment, the automated investing and savings app. CEO Sarah Levy shares why they provide tools and technology for retail investors, small businesses, and independent investment advisors.
At Betterment, there is one unifying idea, which is the idea of expanding access. Historically, great financial advice was reserved for the wealthy, and what technology has done is basically lowered the barrier to entry and created an on-ramp for people earlier in their financial journey to get access to great advice. The same is true for small businesses, where mid and small-sized businesses have not historically been able to afford a retirement solution for their employees. So again, Betterment's technology allows smaller and smaller companies to attract the best employees. And then lastly, for financial advisors, what we've done again is expanded access by automating and using the scale that technology can provide.
Learn more at Betterment.com. Investing involves risk. Performance not guaranteed.
So what do each of you think is the purpose of the ick?
Like, I think sometimes people lean on the ick as like, I don't want to date, so I'm really just going to find an excuse. Like, sometimes people can search for an ick, and then sometimes the ick bites you.
Ooh, poetic.
And so I think for people who are searching for an ick, they're already looking for a way to get out of a relationship. But for people who like get bitten by the ick, I think sometimes it can be intuition. Does your date need to have 7 beers in one date?
Okay, but some things are icks and some things are red flags.
Okay, get into it.
You can sit in the ick and like, I don't know, not immediately be like, no. Whereas a red flag, you got to be like, oh, it's time to wrap it up. It's time to go.
No, I'll tell you what. I think a lot of us struggle with wrapping it up when we see a red flag, too.
A red flag to me is just another data point.
Some of us have sat in with a red flag for a little too long, for a couple years at times.
I want everyone to want more.
I don't know. I think it could be kind of a mix also. Like maybe an ick from one person is not a problem on someone that's really right for you. Like, for example, there was this one guy that I was dating that I got the ick with. I still remember the day. It was the Saturday night before Easter, 2006.
Oh my gosh.
Because I saw him in his house shoes and I was disgusted. I don't know what it was. I was just like, oh, like, I mean, I think about it still to this day.
He was a little bit too at home in front of you is what it sounds
a
like.
little bit too at home. Ooh. But you know what, though? The thing is that my husband he's like Mr. Slipper. I think it's so cute when he wears his slippers. When he wears his slippers, I'm just like, oh, I love it. I don't know. It's like, it depends on the person, depends on the context. Also, though, I think sometimes, I think there are ways in which, though, it can be kind of aligned with isms. Like let's take it back to Reddit, like on the r/AskMen Reddit page, there are a lot of entries about their icks being acrylics, like acrylic nails or vocal fry or liking astrology.
So existing is what gives men the ick.
Right. But also I saw a woman on TikTok saying that she got the ick because a guy she was on a date with knew more about her lip gloss than she did. Does the ick also sometimes reinforce structural social disgust?
I think that if the ick is something that just exists in the dating pool and we all sort of have access to the ick, we can get the ick, then I think that it's perfectly reasonable that people who also hold racist beliefs will then use the ick. Like, it's a really useful tool for people who already have a predisposed dislike or what have you towards a group of people to then say, oh, this is actually something that is just a natural response for me and not something I can control or unlearn. Like, it gives people a way out of just saying, I don't like black people.
It's just a preference.
It's just a preference.
Preference. That word comes up a lot in dating. These personal lists of what you want or don't want in a partner. And while you may think that your preferences are personal tastes, you'd be wrong. Your preferences are as influenced by socialization as your taste buds. To dig into this part of the ick, the disgust for things you prefer not to have around, I called up Professor of Psychology Josh Rotman. He studies the psychological development of disgust in early childhood.
Thank you for having me.
Now, this question of where disgust comes from has been hotly debated in psychology. Freud theorized that it was a way for humans to differentiate themselves from animals. We got grossed out by other animals and their behaviors as a way to be more evolved. Other theorists thought it evolutionarily developed as a way for us to avoid bacteria, like the smell of bad meat. It smells disgusting, so we don't eat it. But Josh has a different theory, that disgust wasn't just a biological development, but a social one too.
The development of disgust is really slow and protracted. Unlike many emotions that emerge within the first year of life or so, it seems like disgust doesn't really robustly come online until around 5-6 years of age.
Oh.
At the point when kids are really starting to think about cooties and in-groups and out-groups, and those kinds of allegiances get really important. But it's really the first few years of life when it seems like disgust would have been the most necessary because kids' immune systems aren't very developed at that point.
Right, it would keep them from licking things in public.
Yeah, exactly.
Touching things that are gross, yeah.
Yeah, so if it was all about keeping us healthy, it seems likely that it would have emerged earlier in development.
Does it serve us or hinder us, like with people that we're dating? Is this something that helps us or does it harm us?
Overall, I think disgust is an extremely harmful emotion.
Really?
Yeah, and there's a lot of good evidence that genocides and a lot of horrific things that have happened in society have been correlated in some way with disgust. A lot of genocides have been perpetuated through propaganda that paints the outgroup in some kind of icky, revulsive way as cockroaches or rats. So, yeah, I mean, disgust can be really powerfully leveraged to distance us from individuals or whole groups and to think of them as less than human in some way. The ick is probably a much more minor version of that, but I think dating is one case in which probably these feelings of ickiness are not going to be great signals of whether someone's going to be good for us and a good partner.
When we were looking for icks to discuss in this episode, some that were unearthed were Millie Bobby Brown, the young actress. She said that one of her icks was men holding umbrellas because she said it was pathetic.
I did discover that your biggest ick is men holding umbrellas.
Right.
And it's stuck with me, and I need to know why.
Because there's something about it that just feels really pathetic.
Another woman we talked to in the street said she found tripping, like a man tripping and falling, to be an ick.
There's just things that you just shouldn't be doing in public, and one of them is tripping. Like, that's embarrassing.
But it sounds like you're saying more often than not, like, revulsion at those types of things is bad for us.
I think so. It's something that in our evolutionary history might have helped us to survive and reproduce. But I think a lot of the specific icks that people have are reflections of social norms that we might want to challenge. So sometimes people might feel the ick if their male partner is not being sufficiently masculine or something like that. And that might be an aversion to the kind of norm violation against masculinity. And so maybe for that person, that would help guide them to someone who is more masculine and who in that particular society would lead them to have higher social standing or something like that. But I think we should always kind of step back and ask ourselves why we're feeling the ick. And I think in many cases, if we do that, we'll realize that there's not a great reason for it.
Wow. So you heard it here first, basically. Josh said if you're getting the ick, it's on you. That's a you problem.
Yeah.
That was Josh Rotman. He's a professor of psychology at Franklin and Marshall College and a researcher of cognition and emotion.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I really appreciate it.
And I'm going to put on my influencer hat for a second and ask you to please subscribe to this show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. Click follow so you know the latest in culture while it's still hot. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Liam McBain.
Barton Girdwood.
This episode was edited by
Jasmine Romero.
And a shout out to NPR's Corey Antonio Rose and B.A. Parker for their thoughts on the ick. I'm your host, Brittany Luce. Talk soon, y'all.
This message comes from LinkedIn Ads. Target your buyers by job title, company, role, and skills with LinkedIn Ads. All the professionals you need to reach in one place. Get a $100 credit on your next campaign at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This message comes from NPR sponsor HP. Break language barriers by translating languages in real time with the HP AI PC. With the right tools, work doesn't have to feel like work. More at hp.com/AI PC.
This message comes from LinkedIn Ads. One of the hardest parts about B2B marketing is reaching the right audience. That's why you need LinkedIn Ads. You can target your buyers by job title, company, role, seniority, and skills. All the professionals you need to reach in one place. To get a $100 credit on your next campaign so you can try it yourself, just go to linkedin.com/results. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. Only on LinkedIn Ads.